Okay.
Yeah.
So I just started the camera. We are not that many people in the room right now. Only 2. But perhaps there will be more people joining the next lectures. And I guess the plan is, as usual, to improvise a bit and to follow my slides for a bit so that I don't forget to say anything. And I think the first thing I want to do is talk about the last semester when I had this course.
I'm sorry, will the slides be available to us so we can...
Yeah. I have a web page where I will put all the slides and the movie. Oops. And last semester I asked for some feedback so that I could improve this course. And this is sort of what I heard back from them. So the first thing they wanted was to have more assignments with increasing difficulty. So previously I had only a few assignments that were mandatory to the course so that I just could make sure that everyone was catching up with the topics that we were talking about. But they wanted more, to practice more. And instead of having more assignments, I sort of created a set of bonus tasks, which are not mandatory, but something that could help you train different things that we're going to do within this course. And the other thing was a bit slower tempo. And in this course, I'm trying to adjust the speed as much as possible to the people who are in it. And because we're not that many people, we're 5 persons this time, it's possible to have quite different topics and speeds, and I will still have time to help you. So I'll have to hear back from the other ones who are not here right now about the speed. But my plan is to go back to like the default basic, and if you already know some programming, you are free to use your 20 hours a week to do more. And I really encourage you to do that, to use this time to get your research going. And then they wanted more lectures, which unfortunately is not possible. But yeah, it's not possible. But there are some weeks when you're supposed to work on your exam task. Maybe it's possible to have one extra lecture to catch up. I don't know. We'll have to see about that. They wanted to read different kinds of data into Matlab. And I think that's something that we'll just have to discuss. Do we really want to do that or not? So about halfway into the course, remind me to ask you about this. More statistics. And statistics is fun. A long time ago when I set up this course, I didn't do much statistics in Matlab because I just used SPSS. But over time I've been using Matlab more and more to do statistical tests. And I'm kind of fond of setting up analysis workflows where you can specify your whole analysis. And it's really good to also have the statistics within this workflow. And to make it easy for myself, I wanted to stick within one framework, which is Matlab. So I know a bit more about the statistic capabilities, and they are getting better every year, so we'll see. Maybe we'll do more statistics, I'll ask you. And then people wanted one more meeting after the exam, just to, I don't know, debrief. Hopefully it won't be that horrible. Okay, but anyway, this course, as it is right now, will be a basic programming course, so you don't need to know any programming. So from scratch, learn how to make your computer listen to you. And I think that's perhaps the best thing about programming, is that you can do anything that you can do with the computer if you got a good programming language. And Matlab is sort of good for making most things. It's not very good at making cool arcade games, unfortunately. But for research, it's a high-level language, so it's quite easy to do the most common tasks. And the other thing is to make computers solve novel problems, which is what we always do in research. We always have new problems, so we have to solve them. That requires often new tools. And it's very satisfying to do them yourself instead of relying on other people and asking them for help. Like, I want to do this kind of simple thing, but I don't know how to program. Hopefully we can get a bit further on that part, that you feel more self-sustained. And also find out where you and your computer have problems in your communication, because it's called a programming language, and as all languages, it's really easy to misinterpret each other. So a lot of time is, when you program, a lot of time is spent on debugging, finding your real error. So we're going to talk about that too. And when I set up this course, I thought about what is programming to me. So I've been programming since I was like 8 years old, because my father thought that it was a good idea. So we sat together and he taught me like basic things. And then in high school, I got a friend who was good at programming. And he really taught me how to get fluent in programming. And then that has just helped me a lot over the years. So I like programming. And I've been thinking, what is it? What is programming really? And it's talking to your computer with a language. And there are different languages which are good at different things. But Matlab is good at research, and it's quite easy to sort of communicate using Matlab, which is good. And the other thing, programming is about making the computer do the work for you, which is really nice. My computer often works during weekends when I'm not working. When I have heavy computations that I have to do, just tell the computer, okay, first you do this, and then you do this, and when you're done with that, you do this third thing. And then you start, and you're having a good weekend while the computer is like suffering under all those gigabytes of data that are being generated. But it can also be seen like a jigsaw puzzle, where you make the pieces, because when you program, you sort of build blocks of code that has to fit together, like in a jigsaw puzzle. But you decide the size of everything and how they fit together. Or it's like learning how to drive a bike. Because it struck me that some students who have not been programming before think that this is very difficult. And it is very difficult, just like when you're riding a bike. You sort of fall and fall and fall and fall and you hurt and you get angry. But then, after a while, they're like, aha, I get it. And after that, you still fall, of course, with a bike, but you know how to control it, you know how to steer and everything. And then it's almost in the backbone how it works. And then it has turned into a way of thinking. And it's a very structured way of thinking. So you can organize quite complex data in your head and in your computer. And when your mind and your computer work together, it's you can really get good things out of it. So it's fun. I really like it. Of course, you shouldn't do this all the time. If something is fun, I tend to spend a lot of time with it. Also when it comes to work. So I have to tell myself, do I really have to solve this task using programming just because I like it? So I have this sort of rules to know when to program. And the first one is obvious. When you want to repeat a task several times, I'm not good at doing the same thing over and over again. I make mistakes and everything like that, but a computer is super fast at doing the same thing again and again and again. So that's a good sign. Or the second, when you want to visualize information, because usually we only get a bunch of numbers, and you can plot them in so many different ways. That's very difficult to do by hand. And with the computer you can just sort of get any kind of plot within 1 or 2 lines. So that's visualizing information is good. And I mean that's something that we do too little within at least psychology research. We've got lots of data, but I think we could plot it more. That's something that everybody says in statistics course. You should know your data. Still, there are so many things that could be visualized. I'm getting better at it because I set up a set of functions that I use to make it easier. But that's also within Matlab. So. Okay, number 3. When you want to do complex mathematics, that's for example EEG. When I do EEG studies, I often transform all the data into 128 dimensional space to make sort of factor analysis. And I can imagine 3 dimensions, maybe 4 if we add time. 5 is, I really have to think a lot. But when it gets really complex, computer will do it all for you. And the last one, when you want to structure your thoughts. So when your brain isn't capable enough to keeping track of everything that is going on, you can just write it down like a list. But it's not a static list, it's actually a list that do something for you, which is good. And now someone should ask me about Time Studio.
What's Time Studio?
Thank you. Time Studio is a framework to do these workflows of analysis. And that's something that we built. It's a really minimalistic scientific workflow system. We built it in our lab because we had problems with sharing programs and transparency. And we wanted to share the code to other researchers so that they could do the same thing, but they shouldn't ask us for support. So it had to be some sort of quite easy to use graphical user interface thing. And we made this and it worked quite well, but the thing is that since we made this, I started to do things in a different way. I'm starting to think in a different way on how I will make my analysis. And I think that's really cool when things that we do with our computers change the way we think in a good way. So I can talk a lot more about Time Studio later. I think I will show you at some point, because I think it's good way to structure your thoughts. And there are other scientific workflow systems that you can use. That's also something I encourage.
Is that like a toolbox, or is it a software, or what's it
Scientific workflow system. Well, you can Google it. It's just a framework for to set up an analysis so you can reproduce it and make it transparent and share it with other people so that they can validate it. And it was originally thought for people working in biology, so that they could cooperate on gene mapping, for example, and have these huge common databases that they could work on and do the same analysis and make sure that they got the same results.
Interesting.
Yep. Yes. But I work within developmental science, and we didn't need these huge, large-scale frameworks that took a very long time to get into. So we wanted something that was as close as possible to what we already were doing, which was coding in Matlab. So it's quite easy to just cut and paste code that you already have into a plugin so that it becomes modular, and then you can just insert this and rearrange your analysis.
Very good.
Yeah, it's good. Matlab also has built-in support to do that, but we wanted to make our
your own. I see.
Yep. Okay, so when shouldn't we go programming? Well, when the problem is occasional and time-consuming. So sometimes tasks are really just easier to do by hand. Or when you can solve the problem in another way more efficiently. I think that's a very broad category, but it's just to sort of stop myself from trying to solve every problem with programming.
I just want that feeling. I want to have the feeling that I want to program.
Yeah.
These are no problem for me.
Okay, so let's continue with the basics. What do we need in order to go programming? You need a computer. You can do some simple programming on a mobile phone or a tablet, but I'm trying that for my kids, and it's sort of fun, but you can't really do the really interesting things. So a computer is good, and you need a computer language. In this course, the language is Matlab, but it could well be some other programming language if you want to solve another task. So for statistics, many people in research use R, or C# Sharp or Java or JavaScript, very common. I think I got a list later, we'll see. But for this course, Matlab. And then you need some sense of logical reasoning. And it's not too much, so don't be scared of that. And you need a goal or at least some data to process. So that's what you need. I think you got all of that already, right? So anyone could actually learn. So here's an example of logical reasoning. Can you solve this? But you practice.
You took this course before, didn't you? So.
It's not too hard. It's like really basic things, because that's what programming is doing for you. A computer isn't really smart, but it can handle bits like zeros and ones really fast. But on a very basic level, it's not much more than this. So you have to figure out within this course, what is your goal? Because if you don't have a goal, this course will be learning how to program, and that's sort of, life is more important than that. But if you have a goal, I think that's what's life all about, fulfilling your goals in one way or another. So set a goal, what you want to accomplish, and then we can start to get you there. Actually, I'm thinking that maybe we should have a short break. Grab a cup of coffee.